And we are live. Welcome to the Aligned Business Series with Acacia Thornton, the CEO legal coach. That's me. Today's call is if you've ever had a knot in your stomach when you've tried to hold a boundary with your clients, right? This one is for you. Today, we're taking on the topic of how to say that's not included and get paid for it without feeling guilty. Welcome again. My name is Acacia Thornton. I'm the CEO legal coach, and this is the Aligned Business Series where we go live 3 times a week telling you real world client stories, what other business owners are facing, because a lot of us face the same things, and what we did to solve those problems, the different types of solutions available to you. And as always, we have a live Q&A at the end. So if you want to find the chat, go ahead and get your answers in there. Today is 4th of July. Woo! So I'm coming to you from my family home, not my home. It's a different background, different vibes. But I'm really excited to be here with all of you today because let's be honest, sometimes as entrepreneurs, the time everybody gets off is when we finally get to get stuff done. And that's why I wanted to show up on a holiday for everyone, because in the morning, this might be the first day you've slept in a while. This might be the first time you get to breathe and just do that task you actually want to do in your business. And so I want you to know that me, the business advisor, longtime attorney, and coach, I'm here to support you no matter where you are. And what are we supporting on today? That's not included and get paid for it without feeling guilty. So let's start to even look at where does this come from, right? Where does the feelings of the guilt, the having to say that's not included, where does this conflict come from? And I'm going to call it a conflict because it's not an outward one. Believe it or not, there's nothing going on with our clients other than an ask from them. And they're allowed to ask things. In fact, we want them to come to us with their asks. That's a great, powerful thing. That means they trust you. They want to work with you. They're loving the vibe and everything you bring. So the conflict isn't the client coming to us. The conflict begins with how we feel inside and then how we express that in the business, in the agreement, and to the client. So where does this really let's look at this for a sec, right? Let's do a little dissect. The different areas where this can come into your business is maybe you're doing more than you're being paid for. And this matters because, well, that right there is a profit loss, straight out profit loss. Maybe you're over delivering, you're delaying timelines, the scope is confused, you're giving more because you feel you have to. You're nervous that they're going to abandon you. You're nervous that they're going to say no and walk out the door. You're nervous they're going to be angry, leave a bad review. And what this ultimately does is these internal feelings, as they come out and we keep saying yes, yes, yes to the client, is we start to realize internally this doesn't feel right. And that's never a great place to be in because we feel forced to say yes when the rest of us is saying don't. No more yeses. But also you're training your clients. You're training your clients to expect access to you. And they're expecting that access instead of the agreement, which we're going to get to here in a bit when I tell you my client's story. When you agree on something, well, that's what everyone wants to uphold because that's what was agreed to be upheld. So when you're saying yes to things beyond that, you're actually saying what we agreed to doesn't matter. And then it negatively affects you internally, negatively affects your business, your profit, your time, your margins, and so on and so on and so on. And so long-term, this creates resentment, burnout, and it also creates poor client dynamics because they're going to start to build, right? They over the years, you're training the same clients and you have a new client does, and then now all of a sudden you have 5 clients, 6 clients, 10 clients, all doing the same thing, and you're expected to react. Maybe it wasn't a big deal when it was 1 or 2, but now that it's 10 or 20, it feels different. So let's take a quick look at a client story. This is one of my clients. She is a coach, been around for years, great coach, business coach. She also offers a website and logo design. She's great at that. Most of her clients end up getting both her coaching plus her design packages. And she had sold one of these combo packages. It was a 3-month coaching package with a call a week. And then there was also the logo and website design. And she ended up with a client that didn't really show up on time prepared, or always had something else, was indecisive. Oh, can we just do this now? Oh, what about this? And it kind of kept moving the needle a little bit. And at the same time, the coaching calls weren't moving the needle forward as they wanted to, right? As a coach, you want to move your client forward. You have a plan, a goal, you're trying to get them there, and you have a structure in your calls to move them forward. Meanwhile, the client is like, oh, this, that, sparklies, or I can't decide, or oh, my boyfriend broke up with me. Oh, this is going on. And suddenly it becomes an emotional container instead of a coaching container. And all of these layers ended up playing into my client's customer, her client. So the design work never moved forward, even though the coaching calls got used up. So my client gave extra coaching calls, trying to get that move. Oh, I love it. Oh, my dog just popped in. Oh my gosh. So much for professionalism today. Everyone's seeing the real family vibes. My dog is behind me. But back to the client story. The idea here was that she just kept giving, trying to be there for her client. Some of it was her client asking for things. Hey, can we tweak this? Can we do that? Can we extend this? But other parts were her giving, over giving, extending, trying to be there and help her client be successful. That's what a great coach does, is you want them to be successful. You want them to feel happy. You want them to feel satisfied and complete in the services they've got from you. But what ultimately happened is that coaching project ended up going for 12 months. That's 9 extra months. And that design work still was never done. All of that work, all the extra coaching calls went unpaid. They went unpaid, and she actually ended up having to refund 80% of the design work because that part never got done, even though she did all this extra work towards it. What went wrong here? What went wrong? It's not so much that somebody was right or wrong, it's that somebody didn't hold to what was agreed to. And a big part of what's agreed to with our clients, what they agree to, what we agree to give them, that emotional support container is your client agreement itself, the document, the contract. Gamma's got opinions about that. So the contract said everything that she was supposed to give to her client, but it never really defined what the client boundaries were. It also never decided what the client was responsible for. And it didn't say anything that happens when the client goes beyond this. Hey, you're out of coaching calls. Now what? What happens when the goals don't get met within what was offered? Maybe you do design work, custom websites, and so on. If the work doesn't get done and what was planned as the timeline, it's no one's fault sometimes. Sometimes there's real legit things like, oh, we all expected this to be done in 2 months. Here we are 6 months later. Which, if you've ever heard one of my consulting companies, that's what happened. It was supposed to be a 2-month project. It kept going in 6 months because there were different expectations of my client just thought they would give the deliverables and all would be good. But their client was like, hey, we thought we had customization and hand holding. And so that we could keep going back and redoing things. Well, even though milestones, deadlines, payments, all these things were in their agreement, things went a bit awry. So let's look back for a second where the guilt comes from. Because there's not just the ability for the contract to be your container and your boundaries and your agreement, but there's where does the guilt come from your side to begin with? Sometimes it's just social conditioning. And especially with women or certain types of roles that you might have grown up in, you might have been told you're supposed to be helpful. You're supposed to be nice. You have to keep the peace. So many times we grew up in homes where we wanted to avoid conflict. We as the kids didn't get to stand up for ourselves to the parents because the parents were going to win. The parents said so. I said so. This is the way it is. So we learned to not communicate where our boundary was. We learned not to communicate what we were comfortable with. And instead, we started to feel that we had to be quiet. We have to be even shamed or guilty or something about having a need or a want. I can tell you that's one I've personally had to work through my growing years. But also if I say no, I'm going to lose them. If I say no to my parents, they're not going to put a roof over my head. If I say no to them, they're going to punish me and I'm going to be banished to my room for being grounded. I don't get to be part of the family and the community. We feel that we're going to lose them, we're going to be banished. And so you end up feeling like the bad guy, even though what are you really doing here as a business owner? A business is not community the way your family is. Your business is a value exchange. These are my products, my services, these are my expertise. This is my time and my heart space, my energetic love. This is what I give. Here's what I charge for that. And anything beyond that, we would want to charge. That's the business value exchange, right? There's the idea of customer service and customer support, but then there comes that tipping point where it's not even good for the business anymore. And so holding business boundaries is different than holding our personal community of love, friends, family, emotional needs, and support boundaries. And it's us who's letting them blur the lines a bit. And so learning to balance this dynamic can be challenging when you're the person who has to decide the boundary, hold the boundary, always try to be there for the client and do the work. And oh, by the way, you still have real family and personal obligations outside of the business space. You're trying to be a human, stay healthy, stay happy, all the while nothing's there to support you. Nothing's there to support you. So how can you get the support? And this is where that client agreement really comes into play. Good client agreements, the contract themselves says the boundary. It says the boundary and what happens when we go beyond that. So both the stories that I told you today, the one about the coach and designer, but also the consulting one that went long, there's two key elements that you can put right into your contracts. You do not need an attorney for these because they're about the business. And the first one is called a scope creep. Scope creep says this is where the boundary is and what happens if they need more beyond it. We want the client to ask for more if they need more. We want to be that go-to person. But we want them to let them know there's a value exchange when you go beyond it. So what is that value exchange? Hey, if you ask for another revision, I need 10 more days. I can't meet the original deadlines. I need 10 more days. And anything beyond that might be billed at $100 an hour, right? What's the value exchange when you go beyond it? So what is the line and what happens when you go beyond it? That's called scope creep. The other part that all of these areas miss is where is done? Where is done? I always love to ask the question, are things done when you say they're done or when the client says they're done? Because if you can deliver it and feel energetically complete, but your client can come back and say, hey, I need revisions, or hey, this, oh, hey, that, I have a question about this. Hey, can I get a question about that? I need another sample. Or if the client can move the line, there is no defined done. And what defines done is called an acceptance clause. That is what is going to define done for you. And these, both your scope creeps, and you can have multiple scope creeps. You also can have multiple acceptance clauses based on how you're doing business. These are your decisions to make, but they are never going to be in a template you have. They're never going to be in something that you got from AI. And unless you've actually paid to have somebody customize your contract for you, understanding your business, not just the legal part, but the business side, these are not going to be customized for your business if they're in there at all. So it's really important that they be created by you in your heart space. So that way, when something comes up from your client, right? Today's topic is how to say that's not included and get paid for it without feeling guilty. So how do you say that's not included? Is you remind them that you've agreed that it's not included. How amazing is that when you get to be like, hey, client, remember, we have an agreement. You sign this and it says this is not included. That means you don't have to be the one to hold the boundary. The client's already said yes to that boundary. That's really powerful. So you get to just remind them of the boundary. That's all you have to do. You don't have to hold the boundary. You don't have to worry about conflict. You don't have to worry about how do I say this without hurting their feelings. The contract's already done it for you. The other thing is, and by the way, I'm going to show you how you can get both an acceptance clause and a scope creep clause. You can just copy paste in if you want that. But then the next part of our title is how to get paid for it. That is literally what a scope creep clause is. Literally is, this is the boundary. That's not included. We can do it, but here's the value exchange. Here's that value exchange. And again, the clients already said yes to this. They've already agreed to this. Yes, yes, yes. Beautiful. You don't have to uphold it. You don't have to enforce it. It's already there supporting you. And you've known the whole time, but so has the client because it's been in writing from the very, very beginning. And then without feeling guilty, you're a business owner. Your business is value exchange. You bring what you want to bring to your business and you offer that for those value exchanges, which is why it's important to have the value exchange and not feel guilty for that. Not feel guilty for that at all. And so I've created a free guide for you guys. This is absolutely free. It's called the 7 Signs That You're Overgiving in Your Business. This is for service providers, and it walks you through all the different ways that you may not realize you're overgiving in your business. And then it takes you through like how this affects the bottom line, how this affects your revenue, how this affects your mindset and your heart set. Absolutely free guide for you to grab that if you want to grab the QR code or I've used a bit.ly here because it was too long on my website. But this is there for you, completely free guide. And you get to look at all the different ways I have seen business owners overgive over the years. So maybe there's some you're not aware of, maybe there's some you are aware of and you haven't known what to do with that. So if you guys want to start getting your questions into the chat, I already saw a couple come in, but we're going to get to those in a second. But I did promise you I would show you how to do a copy paste of these types of clauses. Get them aligned for you, get them customized for your business because you don't need a lawyer. You can do this yourself, but you do need to do it, right? And this is my Align Clients Paid with Purpose program. This program was designed to help you, a business owner, not a lawyer, no, in 30 minutes or less, understand how other businesses are seeing these challenges, what they're writing, what they're saying, what they're doing, and then you choose which one you want and you copy paste right into your agreement. So it helps you make more money while keeping these boundaries. Because how do you feel when you know your boundaries are there? When you know you don't have to worry about hitting that wall, your client asking for 7 more coaching calls to get the design project done, you know it's already been agreed to. You know that if the client needs more than that, they have to pay for it because they've agreed to. And so what I like to just remind my clients of is once it's in your agreement, all you need to do is remind the client that it's there. Hey, don't forget, this is our last coaching call. So if we're going to need more than this to get through your design project or your design works, the rate for that is listed on page 2 of your agreement. If you want to check that out, let me know if you want to shift anything in this call, right? A lot easier. You don't have to feel guilty or ashamed for that. It's already done for you. So that's what the Aligned Clients Paid with Purpose program is. But let's get to your questions here. Let's get to those questions. All right, let's see. What if my client pushes back and says, I thought that was included? Okay, the client pushes back and says, I thought that was included. Now you have a choice. If it's in your client agreement and they signed it, well, they've agreed to it. Whether or not they were aware of it, right? It's their choice whether or not they read it. That's not your responsibility. But if it's in there, you could be like, hey, we have it listed in the contract. This is the way it is. What I like to do here is you have a few choices. If it's early enough, add it to your onboarding. If you see a regular amount of clients not understanding that, add it to your onboarding. Just add it through. We're walking through. Hey, just letting you know that while the design work is this, the coaching calls are only 3 months at this time. So if we don't get through all of the design work in this 3 months, we do have to keep moving forward on that, but you're not going to get extra coaching calls, or you have the choice of adding them at a discounted rate of $100 each, right? You can let them know that you're still there to support them, but then they understand the value container they're getting and what's expected of them. Okay, I have to get my design work done in these calls. Otherwise, it's going to cost me more. And then they have the choice. Because we all sometimes are like, you know what, it's worth that. I need a few more calls. I just do. I'm going to let that happen. And other times we're like, no, I can get this done. And then we take it upon ourselves as the client to get the stuff done because that's what we paid for. So when we have these clear boundaries in the contract, the client can choose what they want to do. Do they want to step up and into the space that they agreed to, or do they want to give more value to get more value? It gives them choices, informed choices. And then if this is really true, or they're like, oh my God, I had no idea, and this becomes a really big deal, you can choose. You don't have to enforce the contract, but you have the choice to say, this is what we agreed to. You can say, hey, I appreciate that maybe you didn't understand this was in there. I put this in there because I want to bring higher level value to all of my clients. And I do have other clients I need to get to in this timeline. So if we're going to go beyond the timeline, I can give you the discounted rate of $100 per call instead of $150, but this is the value exchange. Because it's not your fault that you communicated and put into the agreement what the rules were. You put the rules there. It was the client's choice not to learn the rules, not to see the rules, not to understand the rules, not to ask. And that would be the same if you're playing a game, right? You're playing a board game, or you're at recess as a kid. All you can do is communicate from your side. And what I like to do is then just communicate the value to them. The reason the boundary exists is it helps me give better service. I know that I can handle these projects within these timelines, and so on. Yeah, so find a way that answers that, but knowing that if it's in your agreement, if it's truly already in your contract clause with that scope creep and those acceptance clauses, then you're good. You are good. The client has agreed to it already. So all you need to do is lovingly remind them of that. How do I know what to include in my contract to prevent this? Understanding how your business works beyond the basics. Most templates and what I see a lot of clients do is like, well, hey, I have payment and pricing. I have the milestones. I have the deadlines. I show how many of the coaching calls are included or the deliverables are included. I rarely see agreements that don't have those. And yet none of that would have stopped that coaching client situation with the design project that needed more calls. It also wouldn't have stopped the consulting project that went from 2 months to 6 months because the client thought that they were getting customized handholding along the way. Can they go back and reopen what they've already said yes to? Or, hey, we get revisions, right? Yeah, okay, well, I'm ready for my revisions now. And you're like, that delivery happened a year ago. And they're like, yeah, but my contract says I get 2 revisions. So the more you could see either 2 ways, your own experience. As things go irky or awry in your business, you now learn to put them in your contract. But this is also why I created the Aligned Clients Paid with Purpose program, and why somebody like me works as a great advisor is I've seen hundreds of things, hundreds, probably more than that, some of them, right? I've been an attorney for over 10 years. I've been in business for 20 years. So doing business advising for small businesses since 2004. 2003. So, oh gosh, saying those words out loud. But this idea of I've seen so much, I can give you a heads up of what's coming because I've seen it. And I've put a lot of those into the Aligned Clients Pay with Purpose program already, is to give you that this is what other clients are facing. And that is the number one thing I see from my customers and clients that use Aligned Clients Pay with Purpose. And they're like, I never would have seen that. Or I had no idea I could do that. Oh my gosh, other businesses do this. That's great. I wouldn't have thought of it that way. So it's a great way to kind of see different elements of your business, of what other people are going through, because everybody goes through things in a different timeline and a different approach, but also from your space. So when you see it from somebody else's, you get that freedom of not having to be in the stress or in the conflict or in the panic yourself. You get to just see it clearly from hearing other people's stories. So how to, what to include in your contract? That's how usually is finding somebody who already knows a lot of these, talking to other business owners. Have they ever faced this? What kind of things would they recommend? And then, of course, your own experiences and your own choices. Because just because somebody else did it doesn't mean you have to. I had a big client right now. She actually gives away the business model. And she's like, and I'm like, I can't believe you do that. So many other people would protect that, but I can tell it's so heart-centered for you to do this, that instead of you stopping that, Let's find a way to help that support you. And we actually came up with a whole third business model for her, where she got to give more heart and get paid for it with a scope creep clause. So really, really cool. And she's like, I never would have thought of that because it wasn't about her normal offerings. So just other little things, but that is how. Yeah. How do I charge for extras without making the client feel nickel and dimed? If they've agreed to it up front. If they've agreed to it up front, they know where the boundaries are. They know what they're actually paying for. That's what's clear. This price, dear client, includes this, but not this. So many times you just say, this is what it includes. We don't say what it doesn't include. And so when they get to that, they can already be like, well, I already know that's not included. And then also the friendly reminders along the way. Hey, client, this is your last revision. I want to make sure that this is everything you need. Of course, I'm available for more, but they're going to be charged at the rate in the contract. So I want to make sure that if we can get everything done in this revision, that we do for you. Or we only have 2 coaching calls left. And, those little friendly reminders along the way. Because the clients feel nickel and dimed when they don't know, have no heads up, and don't have the space to make a decision. When they're up against the wall, and I was like, okay, I'm ready for the next call. And you're like, well, that's not included. And then they're not like, wait a minute, I thought that was included. But when we give them the clear what's included, what's not included right up front, and then we give them those reminders, they know they're now in the space of needing to make those decisions for themselves. So they won't feel nickel and dimed because they already know where the boundary was. What do I say if I didn't have the right contract term to begin with? Okay, if you didn't have it to begin with, this is difficult because we can't enforce something against the contract or the client. But what we can do is start to lay the groundwork of those friendly reminders. Hey, client, did you know that we usually only offer 2 revisions at this level? So now that you have the deliverable, now I'm giving you a deliverable, I want you to know our goal is to get these done within 2 revisions. So even though it didn't say 2 revisions in the contract, you can say this is how we normally proceed. This is what we do. And that kind of lays the groundwork for them, that they know that to say, moving with their project, hey, to keep in your timelines that we agreed to. I know this is important that you get this done in the next 2 months. We probably don't want to do more than 2 revisions at this phase, right? So letting them know how it supports them, letting them know that this is how business usually happens, but do it right when you give that deliverable so that you're saying, hey, this finishes this part. This is what the next phase is going to look like. So do your best to communicate ahead of time so they know what the boundaries are, even if they weren't agreed to in that contract. Yep. Okay. I think we got time for like 2 more questions. All right. What do we got? Can you share exact phrases to use in the moment when the request first comes in? What I always recommend is, because one, you want it to feel like it's true from you. You want this to feel like it's yours. So what I like to advise my clients on is give your client, start with a reason that this helps them. We want client to help you stay on your timeline. Hey, client, to help you get the quality of service you deserve. Hey, to keep you, whatever their goals are, whatever the standard is, to help you get that. That's why we have 2 revision boundaries. That's why we have a deadline of 7 days. That is why we only offer a 3-month coaching call. I want you to get your business up and running as soon as possible. I don't want this lingering for you. You know this is in your heart to build. Let's get this done and ready so you can get to the next phase. Communicate with how this helps them, even if that's not why you created the boundary. Even if that's not why you created the boundary. I'll give you one of mine. I had a big vacation coming up. And I had a client who, in the very beginning, she even told me, she's like, we might have to start 2 weeks late. I've got this going on. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Not a problem. You let me know when you're ready to start in this phase. But then we get there, she pays everything. And then, I got to push it back a month. And I was like, okay, I will allow that to go back a month because it helped me at the time. But then she comes near the end of that month and gives me like a 30-minute voice message. But all this and all that. And I was like, no. I was like, how can I help her right now? Because my goal actually was to have all my clients done before I go on vacation. But that doesn't help her. Dragging this out doesn't help her. She also wasn't feeling grounded. It's like, what can I do to make her feel safe and secure right now? I'm like, girl, you have already paid for this. You know you were called to do this right here, right now. That's why you signed up for this. Let's get this foundation under your feet. I already sense you got this going on with your clients. Wouldn't this help you feel more secure? She's like, yeah, actually, it would. This will help me right now. And I was like, yes, let's move this up. Let's get our first call here in 48 hours. I only need this from you. You don't need to do all this other stuff. We don't need perfection. And she was like, yeah, that does help me. So I let her know how this was helping her, even though at the end of the day, my real goal was, well, I wanted all my clients done so I can go have a free vacation without having to worry about calls coming in. But I'm not going to tell her, hey, girl, I'm going on vacation, so figure this out. That doesn't make her feel good. So letting our clients know that we hear them, that we feel them, whatever is important to them. Communicate that first and how this boundary supports that. 9 out of 10 times is going to just get them to step right into the place and be like, yeah, you're right. This is the right thing for me right now. All right, last question. Let's see. What do we got? Are we through everything? What if I feel guilty charging more, even though I know it's outside the scope? Okay. If you feel guilty for charging more, even though it's outside of the scope, what this tells us is you're feeling guilty. This is an internal energetic alignment, block, misalignment, depending on the terminology you like to use for you. That didn't come from your client. That the ask might have, and maybe even your client even knows. Sometimes they even offer to pay for it. And we're just like, oh, no, I'll include that. Starts with you. Look at your internal work, your internal energetic space. Where are you? Why? Maybe just journal and do a meditation. Why does this make you feel guilty? And then once you remove that and you understand it, then you can make a clearer choice for yourself. Then you have a different type of choice of, do I want to charge for it or not? Because you don't have to if you don't want to. But knowing that it's a choice. Where if you're feeling guilty, that's not a choice in the moment. You want to liberate that, remove that block from your center space, and figure out why it's impacting how you're doing business and how you show up for your clients. Because if you're feeling guilty about anything in your business, feeling shamed, you're feeling less than, that doesn't help your clients either. It doesn't help you bring your best to the world. You built your business from heart and passion, and we want that to be a clear, golden, beautiful light in the world, and guilt doesn't support that. So let's find our way to get centered, get to the golden light within you, and come from that space in answering that question. I love it all. Happy 4th of July to all of you. Again, you can always find me at ceolegalcoach.com. This has been Acacia Thornton. Next week, we go live with 3 more. So we're going to hit, oh, crud, what are the topics? Oh my gosh, they are on the Align Business Series page down here at the bottom where it says schedule and replays. You'll see it all there. Have a beautiful